How's it going, everyone? My name is Tyler Bueno, and I have the pleasure of doing tonight's teaching. So when I was a wee little lad like Zacchaeus, I wanted to be a superhero. And I modeled myself after Christ and my two favorite superheroes, Batman and the original Red Ranger. So as I got older, I found out there was a show that was about a guy just like me who wanted to be a superhero. The thing was, he lived in a world that had nothing but superheroes, except for 1% of people did not have powers. And unfortunately, he was in that 1%. People judged him for it because he wanted to be a hero really, really bad. But they were like, you don't have powers, you can't do this, you can't do that. Even one of his friends went out of the way to call him Deku, which is Japanese for worthless or useless person. That's pretty hurtful. But it didn't stop him. He kept going. He wanted to become a hero. So that same friend ended up in a fight with a supervillain. And he saw this. So he decided that one day he was going to do it. He was going to step in, he was going to help his friend. And unfortunately, because he had no powers, no training, it didn't go over too well. But the number one hero, All Might, saw what he did, went and saved him and his friend, and then looked at Deku and said, young man, you too can be a hero. It's pretty strong. So today we're talking about how to help people avoid the trap of judgmental words. And our scripture today is from Matthew 12, 33 to 35. This is NLT. A tree is identified by its fruit. If a tree is good, its fruit will be good. And if a tree is bad, its fruit will be bad. You brood of snakes, how could evil men like you speak what is good and right? For whatever is in your heart determines what you say. A good person produces good things from a treasury of a good heart, and an evil person produces evil things from a treasury of an evil heart. So Jesus was addressing the Pharisees at this point. He had just healed a demon-possessed man. And everybody was in amazement. They're like, wow, is this really the Messiah? And the Pharisees, they were a little bit salty about it. They were saying that he got his power from Satan. That the devil was releasing demons. And Jesus knew what their intentions were. He knew what their heart was. They were not producing good fruit at all. I'm sure you've been in that place too. So how do we avoid that? Number one, we stay humble. So much like the character Deku, I felt like the odd man out in high school. I wanted to be an actor, I was heavy set, and kept getting casted in roles that I didn't really want to do, except for my senior year. I was finally the hero, the thing that I wanted to be. And my best friend was playing the narrator, so we were both the two leads of this show. However, my friend, he had to step away from the show for a little bit because he had family issues. And luckily, we weren't in scenes together very much. So I was able to leave my role once I was done and step into his to help the show progress forward. People didn't like that. Rumors got around backstage that I was doing it for my ego, that I was being arrogant, that I wanted the show to be about me. And when it finally got to me, it hurt really bad. So I went to the director. I said, hey, am I being a problem here? And she looked at me and said, you are being more of a help than you know. Keep doing what you're doing and ignore the drama. So I got back up, stayed humble, and I kept doing what I was doing, and the show went over without a hitch. He came back, everything was great. But I think about Jesus in this moment. We don't know what he looked like whenever the Pharisees would judge him or tell him that he was wrong. I mean, we weren't there, but we can go off of our relationship with him and what's in Scripture. We know that he was level-headed. We know that he was compassionate, and we know that he was godly-minded. And that's really hard for us to do, trust me, I know. But that's my second point. We have to remain in a godly mindset. 1 Corinthians 11:1, Paul says, imitate me as I imitate Christ. The first person we tend to imitate is our parents. And I've seen it so many times that the thing we imitate the most are sometimes the worst traits we can get. Judgment and fear are some of those big ones, and they tie together really, really, really bad. Luckily for me, I didn't have that influence. In college, I met a man named Dash, and we were in an acting class together. And Dash has a really big burly beard. He wore rocker t-shirts. From the outside, him and I had nothing in common. I was into pop acoustic music and superheroes. He was into horror movies and hard rock. And there was just nothing there. But we were assigned to be acting partners a lot of the time. Now, I could have rolled my eyes at him, judged him, and had nothing to do with him. But instead, I learned he liked the game Mortal Kombat. And one of my favorite YouTubers did a Mortal Kombat parody series. So I was like, hey, have you seen these videos? And it was an instant connection. And 15 years later, Dash and I are still really good friends because I was able to look past his outward appearance and focus on him. I didn't judge. And the beauty of it is, this year, Dash gave his life to Christ. So I can't say I can take the credit for that, but I do believe that me walking that path that I did with him led to that. Lastly, we have to remember our beginnings, where we came from, where Christ met us. There's a stigma that people have with church, that it's very friendly, that we just say welcome because we have to say, oh, everybody's welcome. But the truth is, if we want to be Christ-like, if we want to imitate him, we have to be willing to reach people everywhere. We have to remember where we were when he met us. We weren't perfect. We were lost. We were confused. And he didn't expect us to be anything special. He walked up to us in our sin, in our filth, reached out his hand and said, hey, it's okay. You too can meet the Father. So we have to be willing to do that. We can't forget where we began, because we began similar to where they are. We are called to go out into the world and reach anyone we can, those in the dark, those who are lost, and we cannot let our prejudice get in the way of that. So I encourage you, as you go throughout your week, go throughout your month, that whoever you run into, remember that Christ met you in the same place. Anytime that you encounter somebody, you're re-meeting Christ. So don't forget that. Don't get caught up in the trap. I've got some questions for all of you. Discuss them. I love you guys. Have a good night.